Let's go to Rhinoceros and let's start our modeling. First of all, we always recommend to start with the edition mode. So right now we have Clayoo active. We're going to start this model with a primitive. So let's go to the primitives tab and let's start, in this case, with a cylinder. So right now I'm going to just change the properties on the right, and I'm going to set the height. I'm going to reduce the height a lot, so something like that. I'm going to reduce the segment Z to 1, like this, and I'm going to cap in both top and bottom. I'm going to type Engon. So I'm going to use the Engon option to cap it, because well, we're going to see it later. With Engon, it's going to be a little bit better right now. We usually do not recommend to use Engons or triangles so much, but in some cases they're going to save us a lot of time when modeling. So it's nice to know when and where to use Engons. So something like this is the cylinder that we want to do. To create the geometry, just click on OK. I'm going to change the display mode to shaded, and we're going to start modeling like this. As you can see on the top, I have hotkeys active. So I will use just hotkeys to change between the toolbar and viewport, so just the gumballs and the selection mode, just to go a little bit faster. I won't use it to run commands, okay? Or in any case, I will let you know which command I'm using, okay? Just to make sure that everyone is following what we are doing here. So first of all, let's rotate this piece a little bit. So holding Shift to snap 90 degrees, like that. And I'm going to go to the front view, shaded, and I'm going to rotate that a little bit, 90 degrees more in here. So from the front view, I want to make sure that this is where I want to see. I'm going to move it, and I'm going to put it more or less in here. Okay, what are we going to do right now? So the first I want to create, it's when we smooth this model. This is not the shape that we're looking for, so we're going to add some divisions. In this case, instead of using divide, what we're going to do is we're going to change the faces selection mode, select both faces, and we can do both. We can inset that, or we can use the scale mode and holding Alt in 2D. Okay, in this case, it's exactly the same, so I'm going to use maybe the inset command. It's the I if we have hotkeys active, but let's go for the inset command. I'm going to increase a little bit more the size, something like that's going to be fine, and let's click on OK. Now if I just smooth that, we can smooth with the tabulation icon. So usually if I just change this visualization, the view mode, so just make sure that you're using tabulation instead of going here all the time. I'm going to use hotkeys just because it's faster while modeling. Maybe at the beginning it's a little bit hard to use, but when you get used to it, it's so good. So now let's go to the right view, and I'm always modeling in shaded display mode. So I'm going to move a little bit. So I've clicked U to move this piece a little bit, so like that. And I'm going to activate right now Symmetry, just to make sure that I'm creating another piece exactly like that. So I can just type on the command bar, or I can come here on Edition and Symmetry. I'm going to activate the Symmetry by plane, so clicking on plane, going to active grid snap, 1 point, second point, and this is the result. So let's right click to validate, and then we have our model right now. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to start modeling from this top part of the wine opener. So what we want to do is right now we want to rotate these two objects. So we're going to go to the rotation. We're going to double click on the rotation axis in case that we want to just type the exactly degrees, and we want to make sure that this part is flattened to the top, to the bottom, sorry, and this part to the right. So we are going to double click in here, and we're going to rotate that 22.5 degrees just to make sure that this is the result that we're looking for. So from the front view, now it snaps perfectly on both sides. So at this point, let's go to join this part with the central part that we're going to create here. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go from the top view, and we're going to create another cylinder. So let's go to primitives and create a cylinder. In this case, we want to reduce a little bit more the size, something like that's going to be fine. Yep. And we don't want the n-gons right now. We can create the n-gons and then delete it. Okay, we can do both. So creating the n-gons or then do it manually. In this case, okay, I'll let the n-gons here. And I'm gonna move that, clicking W because I hotkeys active to change the gumball mode and move it like that. What I'm gonna do is just move these two selections a little bit there. And now I'm gonna make sure that in here I'm creating the geometry that I want. So I make sure that this is a symmetrical object. So right now when I try to extrude that or I try to move that, I'm gonna move everything. So this part and the other part. So I'm gonna extrude that. How do I extrude that? I can use the command in here, Addition tab and extrude, or I can hold Alt on my keyboard and drag it. Okay, in this case, as we've said, the other side is symmetrical, so I'm gonna have both the same result in both cases. Right now I don't want this part to be symmetrical anymore, so what I'm gonna do right now is select the entire object, go to the Symmetry tab, and go for End Symmetry. Right now this object is not symmetrical anymore, it's just an object, so in case that I move something on one side, it won't move on the other side. Right now I'm going to bridge these two faces in here, so this face and the other face, and I'm going to join that. How do I join it? How do I create geometry between both? So creating a bridge. So let's go for the Addition tab and Bridge. Now I'm creating symmetry between geometry between both. In this case, I can just set some segments in here, but the result is fine for us. So let's click on OK. What's going to happen right now? We have this model in here, and we want to join this part with the other part. And in here we have three faces, and in this part we have only two. So we have to make this part to match with the other one. For sure, we can make a cylinder instead of with two sides, with more sides, and just make sure that we have three in both sides to bridge that. But in this case, I'll make it easier. So what I'll do is I'm going to select these two edges in here, and I will make those match. Okay, and I'm going to use the command match to do that. So let's go to the Addition tab and click on Match. Now let's click on Validate, and I can make sure that this is match. Okay, and the geometry that we have, it's all together in this case. Okay, we have a triangle in here. We don't recommend to use too much triangles usually, but it's no problem if we have just one. Okay, now let's go to the front view, and I'm gonna add some divisions in here on this part and on this part just to bridge that and have a good result. How do I do that? So I can go to the front view, make sure that I'm not in point selection mode in any other else, because I want to activate this Smart Divide. So when I click on Divide without any selection, I can just click anywhere I want to add the division. So I can click, for instance, in here, right click to repeat the command, and in here. Now let's go to perspective. Now I recommend to save the file just in case we can have any problem in any moment. Okay, so I usually recommend to save the file. So Wine Opener Webinar. Okay, just anytime can happen anything, so just make sure that you have your file saved. So how can we do that? We can do multiple workflows to match this part with this part in here. One of them can be just deleting this part in here, deleting this face, for instance, in there, and making sure that I join this part in this part and this point in here. How do I do that? I can do exactly the same that I've done with match, or I can do it with points. If I do it with points, I'll have to use the command weld. That is going to be the one that I'm going to use right now. So let's go to the Addition tab and weld from this point to this point. Let's go to the bottom one, repeat the command from this point to this point. The first selection is going to be the point that it's going to move, and the second one is the one that it's going to snap to. Okay, so from here to here, and in here I make sure that, okay, from here to here, I'm gonna delete this face. So clicking face selection mode, delete the face, and do exactly the same with these two vertices in here. So let's click 1 to change to vertex selection mode, and let's go to weld from the first point to the second one, and repeat the command from this point to the last one. So right now we have this geometry merged between each other. So if I just smooth that, this is going to be the result. Okay, a transition between both. This is the cylinder that we create. So now we are sure that this is the real part. Okay, so this is a real cylinder, and we are matching it with this part in here. So from the front view, I can just change a little bit. For instance, I want to make this part a little bit closer to the cylinder. That's going to be fine. Or maybe I want to just move that up a little bit to make a transition a little bit more organic. Okay, we can just modify that anytime we want to. So let's go to the front view. I usually recommend to model in basic view. I'm get used to it, so I really do recommend that. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to delete this bottom part, and I'm going to delete all this loop. How do I select the entire loop? So I've just clicked on one of the faces, holding shift and double click on the next one, so we have the direction, and we can just delete that. Okay, now I want to cap that one more time. So how do we cap that? We can use the command fill. Is this one in here, but fill, it's going to fill everything that it's naked. In this case, it's the only part that it's naked, but just to make sure, just click one of the edges of the naked loop and then go to fill. Okay, and now we are sure that this is the part that we are filling. Okay, what else? So right now what we're going to do is we're going to make the part that it's going to match with the bottom part of the wine opener. So to do that, I'm going to select these two faces, and I'm going to make a similar workflow that I've done in the other part. So let's hold Alt on my keyboard and drag it a little bit, something like that. And what I'm going to do right now is select exactly the same that before, these two parts, and bridge that. And right click to validate. And now I want to make sure I'm clicking 2 to change to edge selection mode, selecting both, and match it. Okay, let's go to match. In this case, I'm matching the first with the last one. Okay, so I have to flip that. To flip that, I just have to click here on align. Okay, usually it happens, so clicking on align will let me just manually align the match, just to make sure that the result is going fine. And what we're going to do from here is just creating all the geometry. So I'm clicking 3 to change to faces selection mode, and I can just refine the shape in here. Okay, so I can just play a little bit, because this is going to be the shape that it's going to match with the bottom part. So right now this is the result that we are having. It's quite what we are looking for. So what are we going to create right now? We're going to create the base of the wine opener. So we're going to go to the top view, in shaded mode, and in basic view. So let's go to primitives. Again, we're going to create another cylinder, and in this case we're going to make it bigger. So maybe something like that's going to be fine. In this case, I don't want to cap that, so say none and say none. Something like that's going to be the result. Maybe it's a little bit big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, like that. Okay. Anytime I can change it later, so no problem. Let's click on validate. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it a little bit down, like this. I'm going to make some extrusion, so clicking 2 to the edge selection mode, selecting all these edges in here, and I'm going to hold Alt one more time to drag it a little bit down, clicking R to change to the gumball mode, and with the 2D gumball mode making a little bit bigger, W to change to gumball move mode, and drag it a little bit to the bottom. So that's pretty fine. So that's more or less what I'm looking for. And I'm going to give a thickness to this part in here. So how do I give a thickness here? So I select the entire object, and I'm going to use the command shell. So I'm going to go to the addition tab, and let's go to shell. When I'm clicking on shell, I can set on the command bar the distance that I want to set. In this case 1, maybe it's too small. I can increase it a little bit. We can do it in basic view, so it's easier to see what's the distance that we are putting in here. So something like that's going to be fine. So let's right click. This is the result that we are having. Maybe I'm going to move it a little bit more down, something like that. And now what I want to create is geometry between this part in here and this part in here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, let's go to the front view. Let's make sure that the top part is more or less the shape that we're looking for, something like that. And now let's select these two faces in here. So let's go to face selection mode. And from the front view, I'm going to extrude that up. To extrude that, as we've seen several times, hold Alt on our keyboard and move it up. Okay, so I've created a new selection. Let's select one more time the two faces that we have in here, and from the front view, just holding Alt one more time and creating the new geometry. I'm going to rotate that a little bit, something like that, and moving a little bit outside, and even I can make it a little bit smaller. And now what I want to do is I want to bridge this geometry between this geometry. As I have two faces on one part and two faces on the other one, I won't have any problem. Okay, just when we are bridging, just make sure that we have in both sides the same selection. So let's go to Edition tab and bridge that. Okay, in this case, let's click on Validate, and there we go. For sure, right now I can just make sure that this is the result that we are looking for, so I can select the loop of edges and make sure that they are the position where we want to. In here we can smooth and just refine a little bit more the shape if we want to, but the result is quite good. We can go to the right view and make sure that the size is the one we want, the thickness is good. So maybe I want to scale that a little bit and do something a little bit more like this. Okay, so we are going from small to big. So something like that, it's what we're looking for. I'm gonna save the file again, so just make sure that you are saving the file quite often. So what we can do right now is we can apply symmetry to our model. We can do it now or we can do it later, but this object is going to be symmetrical. Okay, so from this side to the other one. So let's keep working with this object, and at the end we're going to make it symmetrical. So let's extrude that a little bit more, and let's add one new extrusion in here. Okay, there we go. And what we're going to create in here is a hole. So we're going to select both endpoints on the top and on the bottom, and we're going to insert that. The first time that we've done that at the beginning of the webinar, we said that we could do it also with the gumball. So now let's do it with the gumball instead of with the insert. So let's go to the scale gumball, and using the 2D scale and holding Alt on my keyboard, I can just drag it. Okay, and I'm creating this kind of, it's like creating an insert on the top part and on the bottom. I'm using the 2D gumball because these two selections were aligned to the plane of this 2D gumball, so it's fine. If are not, it's better to use the insert command. And if we want to create the hole inside, so we just have to use the command that we've seen before, the bridge. So we're going to bridge that again, and there we go. So let's click on OK, and this is the result that we have right now. Okay, perfect. So if I smooth that in here, it's too smooth and I want a little bit more flatten on the top. So I'm going to add I can add a new division in here. So let's click on D or go to divide and add one division here on the inner part. And when I smooth that, this is going to be a little bit more flattened. Okay, also what we can do is just move this division a little bit more to the top. So to make it a little bit more flattened on the top. So we have a few more steps to do right now. So we're going to start with the hole in this part in here. So we're going to make two holes in here because we want a screw with the part where we are pulled to open the wine. So first of all, let's go to face selection mode and let's click on the different faces that we have in here. And we're going to insert that or scale. We've seen both. Okay, to create a small hole in here on the inside part. So let's go to the addition and let's go to insert and let's increase a lot the distance. If we want more distance than the one that it appears on the slide, it's no problem. We can type any value in here, or I can use my scroll wheel to increase this value. Okay, so no problem. The slider, it's only a guide for the maximum and minimum values, but we can always increase it or decrease it. So let's say that this is the size that we want. Let's click on validate, and now we want to apply one more insert in here. So let's run the command again, and right now as the distance is saved from the last insert that we've created, now it's so big. So we're going to use this slider to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, something like that. Let's click on OK. And now what we want is create a hole on one side and a hole on the other one. So select one of the faces with the other one and bridge that. So I'm clicking B on my keyboard because I have hotkeys active. We have seen this command just multiple times. And the same on the other side. So this face and this face, repeat the command and validate. So that's the result right now. With the two insets in here, we are getting this part to be a little bit more flat and not to be a really too much organic hole. So we are making like a real piece in this case. So this part it's almost done. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the front view. We're gonna delete 1/2. We're gonna select the entire object and we're gonna set a symmetry. So let's go to symmetry by a plane from this point to this point and right click to validate symmetry. Okay, what I'm gonna do right now is select the object and create a new layer. So maybe part 1, and I'm gonna change the object to this layer, and maybe I'm giving a color to this part, maybe gold. It's gonna be a nice color, so it's gonna be easier for me to identify it. Okay, and in case that I want to just hide that, it's gonna be easier for me. So now let's go for the handles in here. So how do we create the handles? We want to make sure that the handles has the same size than the other part. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the faces. So let's select these faces in here and also the ones from the inside. So I'm gonna also select these ones in here. So just holding shift for multiple selection. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna extract those faces. So let's go to the edition tab and extract. It says if I want to copy, I will say yes. Let's copy that. And from the top view, I'm going to just move that a little bit just to make sure it's not perfectly touching. Okay, so it's this part in here. And I'm going to give a thickness. So to give it a thickness, let's go to the Edition tab and use the shell command. In this case, I'm going to reduce a little bit the thickness, so something like that's going to be fine. Okay, just make sure that we are giving the thickness that we want to this inner part. And let's right click to validate. So right now we have the inside piece. Okay, and we are sure that we are sharing the same hole because we have copied the same faces from one side to the other one. So right now what I have to do is I have to select this face in here and start modeling. So let's hide this. Sorry, this part it's in the other layer. So let's select another layer and paste it here, right there. And now I'm gonna hide this big part, selecting this facing here, and I'm gonna create the handle right now. So I'm gonna extrude that, so holding Alt and extrude that a little bit, something like this. And I'm gonna create a second extrusion. And in here, I'm gonna just rotate that a little bit. Maybe I'm gonna create just one extrusion. It's gonna be a little bit more beautiful. So something like that, and rotating that a little bit, something like this. And in there, I'm going to create the second extrusion. So just holding Alt and creating this. Now I'm going to select all these faces in here. So clicking one, holding Shift and double clicking the next one. And with the scale gumball, I can just hold Alt on my keyboard and extrude that a little bit. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting the shape that I want on this part. So if I smooth that, I can just refine a little bit this shape in here. If I just show the other layer, I can make sure that this is not touching on this part. Okay, so in case that I want to refine that. And right now what I have to do is just selecting the faces from here and just extruding a little bit until I get the desired shape. So from the front view, I will just extrude that a little bit like this. Maybe I'm going to rotate the shape, extrude that one more time. Rotate a little bit, scale it and make it a little bit smaller in 3D, and extrude that one more time and make it even smaller. Okay, something like that. Just to make sure that the size is correct, I'm gonna just show the other object, and I've seen that this is too small. Okay, so I will just move that a little bit and move this part a little bit more. So something like that's going to be a little bit more realistic. So now from the top view, I can just readjust the thickness of this part. So if I have to pull it with my hand, I have to make sure that this have enough thickness to be pulled with a hand. So maybe something like that's going to be better. And the last shape that we have in here, maybe I can just move that a little bit to create a beautiful end. So something like that's going to be more or less what I'm looking for. So let's save that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. Okay, and well, it was already on this part in here. So let's change the name to part 2. Let's go to the default one more time, just to have everything organized. So I can change the color if I want to, just to identify it visually. So this second object. So let's save again, just in case. We're just missing 2 parts, the screw and the central part. We're going to start with the central part. So let's go from the top view and let's create a cylinder for the central part. So let's go to primitives, cylinder, and now let's adjust the cylinder that we want to create with the central part. Okay, in case we want to make it match perfectly, or we want to make it a little bit more smaller. I think this size is going to be fine. So I'm going to validate that. And I'm going to just move this part to the top, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to scale that a little bit, just to make sure, even a little bit more, that it's crossing from the top and from the bottom. Okay, and from this point, just keep modeling. So the first that I'm going to have to do is go into the front view, selecting this loop of edges, moving it a little bit down, and create some extrusions here. So I'm going to create one extrusion there, one more here, one more, and the last one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these faces in here, holding shift, and these faces in here, and I'm going to extrude that. So I'm going to go to the command, edition tab, and extrude. In this case, I don't want to extrude by group. I want to extrude it by local normals. And in this case, I want to do it inside. So just pull the handle, and let's go for the inside part. And if I smooth that, I can see that that's too much smooth. I don't want that smooth. So I will increase the segments from 1 to 2. And the result is going to be a little bit better right now. So let's click on OK to validate. If I go to the front view, if I add one more division in here, the result is going to be a little bit better. So I'm going to move that a little bit and divide that one more time in here. There we go. This is the result I'm looking for. Let's grab this part, extrude that one more time, and let's create the handle for the wine opener in here. So let's scale that a little bit in 1G, something like this, and also in this direction. Let's create another extrusion in here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap this part in here. We have several ways to cap that. The first one, I really do like to create an incision in here, so holding Alt as always and scaling into D. And now let's create 2 faces in here. So how do we create 2 faces in here and make it cap? So we can select these 2 ones, move Gamble, holding Alt to extrude that, like that, and scaling in this direction. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go by vertices, and I'm going to weld from this point to here and from this point to here. There we go. And now what I can do is from the other side, selecting the 2 edges and append face, and selecting these 2 edges and append face. For sure I can activate the symmetry in here, so I will activate it later, no problem, and I will make sure that this is perfectly symmetrical, no problem. So what I'll have to do right now is just making a handle in here, so like a round, and I'll make it manually. So first of all, I will select these 2 edges from the front view, and well, first of all, I'm going to just select these faces from the top, make sure that those are the ones that I want to choose, and move it a little bit inside. And let's selecting these edges in here and start extruding the edges. So let's extrude it one time. Let's rotate a little bit the result. Let's extrude it with the move gamble one more time from the front view. I'm gonna see better the result that I'm getting, and scaling 1D like that. I can extrude one more time and rotating a little bit, and I can extrude one more time and scaling in 1D, or I can rotate that a little bit and then make sure scaling in 1D, just make sure that it's flattened. And now delete this part in here. So right now I can see that this is so small, so I just have to grab everything that I've created here, so all this part, and make it bigger. So just scale that and then just refine the position. So that's the real size that I want to. For sure I can just refine the sizes, moving the edges and everything a little bit outside. Okay, just until I get the desired shape. That's no problem. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to cap this bottom part and create the symmetry. So to finish this bottom part, I will select these two edges in here, make another extrusion, holding Alt, making even another one and make it smaller, scaling it a little bit, and one more time in here, another smaller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cap that the same way that I've done on the top part. So going something like this, but now in case of creating the faces manually, what I will do is I'm going to fill that. So let's go to fill, and now I'm going to divide by points. So I'm going to go point selection mode, I'm going to divide by points from this point to the other one, and from this point I want to snap to the middle, so I have to make sure that in the snap I have the middle, so it will snap directly to the middle, okay, and to the other part. So right now I can make sure that this is the shape that I want. Okay, if I want to refine anything, so just grab the faces and move it up or down until I get the desired shape. So this is quite what I'm looking for. What we want to create now, so we want to create the symmetry here. So let's go to this layer and just hide it. Delete all these parts in here and select the object. Let's go to Edition tab, Symmetry, Biplane, and select from this point to this point, for instance, and right click. Okay, so I have this object perfectly symmetrical, and now I want to create the bottom part. So I don't want this object to be symmetrical anymore because it's finished. I just have to create the spiral link here. So to do that, what I want to do is just go again to Symmetry and just end Symmetry. So the object is symmetrical, but it won't be symmetrical anymore. So from the front view, I want to create the spiral here. So let's go to Rhino. As I have hotkeys active, I have to move my mouse outside the viewport, or I'll run some shortcuts for Clayoo. So let's go here and let's go spiral. So I'm gonna set from this point to this point, more or less, and I'm gonna set maybe 3 turns. I'm gonna deactivate grid snap, and I'm gonna go from this point in here to this point in here. Maybe I'm gonna make it a little bit more smaller on the bottom part, so something like that's gonna be fine. And what I will do right now is I'm gonna pipe this curve in here. So I'm gonna go to creation and I'm gonna use the pipe command. In this case I have a huge radius, so I'm gonna change it to 1, and I'm gonna increase the global settings a lot. Okay, maybe to 20. So right now what I want is this chart to be a little bit more to the start and define a really small radius. So let's refine the radius manually even more. And the same on this start, I will just reduce the radius here and move the radius to this part. Okay, I think that the result is quite what I'm looking for right now. Maybe it's even too big. Well, I think it's fine, maybe a little bit. So a little bit smaller, something like that. And what I'm going to do is just validate that. And now I'm going to just create geometry between here and here. So now let's select the curve, delete, and I want to match this face with this face in here. So what I can do is I can just reduce that a little bit and rotate that. Just a little bit like this. What I can do is this part is so small, so I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, all the entire part I can make it a little bit bigger. just to match better with this facing here. Or I can do multiple things if I want just to refine that and be even more realistic. Okay, that's no problem. I can even rotate that a little bit to follow the shape of the spiral. So like these two faces and bridge that. Okay, one more time using bridge and validate. So that's the shape that we have right now. For sure, if in the bottom part we want it even smaller, we can just select these faces and make it even smaller. All these loop of edges even smaller. Okay, if we want just a sharp end. So we have this central part finished. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in another layer. So we're gonna put it in this layer in here, and we're gonna change the color to sea green, for instance. And the one thing that we're missing, okay, the one thing that we're missing is the squeal in here on this central part. We have too many ways to create the squeal. Okay, I'll show you just one of the ways that we can create. Okay, so let me just hide this part and hide this part. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna select all these edges, and as we made previously, just go into Edition tab and extract that. Okay, copy. Yes, I want to copy that. And right now I'm going to create a new layer that it's going to be called Squeals, and change this object to the new layer. Now from the top view, if I display it in wireframe, I want to make sure that this is on the center, more or less, and I have to scale it until it goes out from both sides. Okay, something like that. Okay, and what I want to do right now is I will just hide this part in here, and I will create the caps. So how do I do that, or which are the caps that I recommend? So first of all, creating a small extrusion, scaling into D, holding Alt to create the extrusion, move Gumball, holding Alt one more time, like this, holding Alt one more time, and scaling a little bit, and just filling the top part. So let's go to Edition tab and fill. So this is going to be more or less how we're going to end this part. Usually there is one cap that is bigger than the other one, so I'm going to create both manually. For sure I can just split that by half and create a symmetry. That's no problem. Okay, but I usually like to create one a little bit more bigger than the other one, so I'm going to do it manually. So I'm going to create this one a little bit more bigger. So something like that. The process is exactly the same. Okay, just the shape that we are creating, that it's a little bit bigger. So let's fill that and refine the top part. So that is that we are creating. So let's see how it looks, everything together. Okay, what are we missing? So we're missing the screw and the handle on the other part. So how do we do that? We can do two different things, or creating the symmetry if we want to keep modeling, or using the mirror command. So in this case, I'm going to type mirror axis on the y-axis. Okay, and I'm going to select this screw, and I'm going to run the same. So let's go for mirror axis, y-axis, and I have it in both sides. Okay, so this was the last step that I have to create for the wine opener. For sure in here I can change anything. If I want to create the spiral bigger, I can just scale that, I can just move that. If I want different handles, anything we want, we can just keep changing it anytime we want. So that's the good part of subdivision modeling, that we can change anytime anything we want. I always recommend to use multiple layers, okay, just to have the model organized. So that's all about the modeling from today. So now let's go again to the presentation, and let's talk a little bit more about the learning and that stuff. If you still have any question, just feel free to use the questions box again. Okay, and Mark or Pedro are going to help you out with the answers. So let's go back to the presentation, and let's talk a little bit about how to learn. So to learn Clayoo, that's always the question that everyone has. How do I learn the software? Okay, so right now we have an online course prepared starting with no experience of 3D modeling, no experience, and starting from the very beginning to a really nice level. So the Clayoo online course is a course where we have different homeworks to deliver, and we try to just correct these homeworks and give advices of how to improve that. So you have to pass the different lessons while you are learning the software. So there are different videos that will explain you some tips, how to create some models, and then you have to repeat this homework and deliver it to us. So it's a really, really, really good way to do that. For sure, we also have different videos to see. So I'm going to show you right now. So this is the website. So I'm going to sign in with my account. So that's what you have to do. You have to be signed in. And in the dashboard tab that it's the user part, we have our learning. So we can go to our learning. And in here we have different softwares. Let's go to Clayoo 2 in this case. And we have the Clayoo online course. We have full tutorials, and we have videos by comment. In videos by comment, we have comments one by one of the different tools. In full tutorials, we have tutorials when you can watch what's the result and the different steps. Or on the online course, if we go here to start, so you have different lessons, okay, and you can just go to one lesson, for instance, I don't know, this modeling something, and you have a video when you can just it says what are you going to learn and everything. And you can just follow the different steps, see the video, and then deliver the homework. Okay. So this is everything about how to learn Clayoo. And for sure, we are doing some webinars sometimes just to keep you updated of everything. So let's talk a little bit about pricing. The prices are published on our website. Okay, so anytime that you want to check that out, you can just check in there and you can see everything you need. Okay, if you need more assistance, just feel free to call us anytime you want to send us an email to info@tdmsolutions.com or just support@tdmsolutions.com. Okay, and we're going to help you out with anything that you need. So I don't want to talk more. So thanks so much everyone for attending one more time. I hope you liked the webinar. If you want to know anything else about us, just check our website, www.tdmsolutions.com, or send us on the email that we have on the screen. I'm going to wait until I close the webinar in case that you have more questions. Okay, I'll have the platform 10 more minutes. In case that you have any questions, you'll have 10 more minutes to ask that. Okay, so again, thanks so much for attending. Have a really nice day and see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.